Sure.
Recall that the federal government conducted 5G trials in some selected locations in November 2019 to ensure that health, security and other concerns were addressed.
A report presented by a Joint Committee on Communication, Science and Technology, ICT, Cybercrimes and Primary Healthcare and Communicable Diseases indicates that results of the federal government's non-commercial proof of content, otherwise referred to as trials, which took place in Abuja, Lagos, Calabar, Abeokuta and Ibadan for 3 months, indicates that the worst-case radiation levels were below the specified safe limits.
Now, the Joint Committee also insists on concerted efforts to deploy adequate technology to ensure Nigerians adequately reap the benefits of the network. This informs our focus on the national policy on 5G on Good Morning Nigeria today. And we are reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. My name is Kirian Umayo. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Jumai Yusuf. I join my colleague Kieran to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. As usual, we have our complimentary segments in the course of the program. Now, here is the morning news with Dennis Adegunloye. Good morning, Dennis.
Yes, good morning, Jumai and Kieran. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari has promised a fair deal to the Ichekiri people of Delta State. This was while receiving the Olu of Warri Kingdom, Oguame Atuwatse III, who he extolled for his patriotic disposition.
As a Nigerian and the leader of the Ichekiri people, it is with a great sense of responsibility that we pledge our loyalty to one united Nigeria as we support your government's aspirations to provide security and economic prosperity to all Nigerians, irrespective of tribe, creed, or religion. Like every other nation on earth, Nigeria has her problems to grapple with. But our firm belief is that as a united Nigeria, we shall stand well and make Nigeria a better country than we met. In unity, equity, and justice, we shall bequeath a better Nigeria to our children.
I thank you, Your Majesty, for this visit, and very impressed by your patriotism. And I assure you that I will maintain contact.
The federal government has approved the immediate deployment of a new revenue assurance solution by the Nigeria Communications Commission, NCC. This is aimed at plugging leakages in the nation's telecommunications industry for enhanced revenue generation in the country. Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, made this known at a media briefing after the meeting of the Federal Executive Council.
The wisdom behind deploying this technology is just an attempt to enhance revenue generation that will go into education, health, infrastructure, and many more. And at the same time, to promote the cyber security of our country by making sure that our cyberspace, particularly as it relates to the telecommunications sector.
And the Federal Executive Council has resolved to forward a special request to the National Assembly for additional funding provisions towards meeting the requirements for incremental fuel subsidy in the 2022 Appropriations Act. Minister of Finance, Budgets and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, announced this while briefing journalists after the Council's meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari.
Haven't taken into account the current realities, increased hardship in the population, heightened inflation, and also that the measures that needed to be taken to enable a smoother exit of the fuel subsidy are not yet in place. It was agreed by Council that it is desirable to exit fuel subsidy. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC, has presented to the Ministry a request for 3 trillion naira as fuel subsidy for 2022. And what this means is that we have to make an incremental provision of 2.557 trillion naira to be able to meet the subsidy requirement, which is averaging about 270 billion naira per month.
Meanwhile, as queues returned at the filling stations in Abuja, residents have lamented the developments and wonder what the reason is this time around.
Despite the fact that the government said they have lifted the possibility of increase in fuel, so this removing fuel subsidy, but still people are not really confident that the government will keep their words.
Honestly, it's chaotic. The queue has come back again. Black market is all over the place. I was driving down to town, see people carrying cakes selling on the road.
If all of them that are selling, this queue will not be there. Yes, they lock their fleet and know that they don't have the fuel. They have the fuel.
I think some petrol stations are holding fuel because of the removal of subsidy.
Well, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company has assured the public that there is sufficient fuel to meet the demands of Nigerians. The statements by the Group General Manager, Group Public Affairs of the company, Garbaddin Mohammed, advises the public not to engage in any panic buying of petrol and also ignore rumours that may suggest otherwise. The company also expresses its commitment to ensuring energy security in the country in accordance with the law. And what many have thought has been consigned to the history books is increasingly becoming a common sight at intermittent intervals in parts of the country. The presence of long queues at fuel stations, which many attribute to politics of subsidy. The House of Representatives says major steps have to be taken to give direction on issues relating to fuel subsidy and the state of refineries in Nigeria.
Fuel subsidy, which has come to a head today. I think it's time for the House to give direction as to which way to go.
One of the outcomes of the coronavirus pandemic is the strengthening of public health systems across the globe. In Nigeria, the National Health Emergency Bill is a major legislative intervention. It seeks to repeal the Quarantine Act of 2004 and to reenact the National Health Emergency Bill to provide for timely control of outbreak of infectious diseases.
The passage of this bill will no doubt ensure timely response to the treatment and prevention of the spread of infectious diseases during the periods of public health emergencies.
Infectious diseases, it is important for us to have a proper prevention mechanism.
To make provisions for the regulating and preventing the introduction into and spread in Nigeria of dangerous infectious diseases and for other related matters. 2022 third reading taken and the bill is passed.
And that's the news for now. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Kirian and Jume after this break. Good morning.
Everybody knows the secret to good cooking is that special ingredient. The mothers know it. But does this new generation know it? Let's find out. Mothers, daughters, are you ready?
Yeah!
Let the cooking begin.
Erisco tomato paste. Now we get home, now we get love, now we get children.
With a spice the world, with a meal so great and so healthy.
You know we've got your back. Oh, with Erisco.
Ladies and gentlemen, food is ready.
Food of love. Good food for the body. Yum yum for the body.
Erisco Richico and Najiko tomato paste is made by Erisco Foods Limited, feeding Africans with healthy foods.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
Everybody dance now. What? Louder. We are the strongest. No challenge can stop us. So Lord, and we are the brightest. No darkness can blind us. We are the strongest.
Let Malta goodness fuel your greatness. Let's go.
Contemporary times require practical skills to remain competitive and relevant in your organization. Therefore, take advantage of NTA TV College Short Proficiency courses to sharpen your professional skills. Computer Appreciation for Media Practitioners. Date 21st February to 28th February 2022. 1 week. English Grammar and Pronunciation for Broadcasters. Date 1st March to 25th March. 4 weeks. Administrative Principles, Processes and Practices. Date 11th March to 31st March 2022. 4 weeks. Modern Trends in Broadcast Media Marketing. Date 14th March to 13th April 2022. 4 weeks. Basic Broadcast Accounting and Auditing. Date 4th April to 19th April 2022. 2 weeks. The course fee for the 1 week course is 100,000 naira per participant. The fee for the 2 week course is 150,000 naira, while the course fee for the 4 week course is 180,000 naira only, accommodation inclusive. The venue for all courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA TV College, near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For more inquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
The Nigerian aviation sector is rapidly growing with the construction of new international airport terminals in several regions of the country. The new Murtala Mohammed International Airport has an estimated passenger increase of 30 million annually and 15 million for Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. Malam Aminu Kano International Airport is also expected to open new frontiers for the region with more travel capacity for the annual Hajj, while the new Akanu Ibiam International Airport, Enugu, avails more business opportunities connecting the industrial cities in the region to the world. These new terminals beat world-class standards with enabling infrastructure that aid air travel, tourism, and the eventual growth of the country's GDP.
Open up commerce and, of course, link us to international societies.
People from international community will come here to do business, and then that will bring in more revenue to the state.
Now, distances can be seamlessly covered as Nigeria keeps raising its bar to suit global infrastructure standards.
All right, thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Now it's time for business. Nigeria's macroeconomic environment looks positive and can be prosperous if the right reforms are effectively implemented. Let's now join Aleka Obanachi Arwa for details.
This is part of submissions at the 2022 Nigerian Economic Summit Group Outlook, launched in Abuja, entitled The Last Mile.
These issues, if properly dealt with, have immense capacity to propel economic growth, enable employment, reduce poverty, and start us on a new path to sustained development.
The framework must be clear. How we do to bring investment must be clear. What we do with the implementers of the plan is very critical, especially the civil service.
Meanwhile, in a remarkable run, stocks on the Nigerian exchange sprung in reaction to fresh investors' confidence as two Nigerian businessmen, Aliko Dangote and Abdulsamad Rabiu, appear formidable in Africa on Forbes list released this week. The All Shares Index went all the way up to 46,529.99 points in midweek trade as investors traded almost 329 million shares in 4,219 deals valued at 4.817 billion naira. Equity capitalization ended the session at 25.073 trillion naira. With business news, Alika Opanachi Arwa.
Thanks, Alika, for the business news. Next on Good Morning Nigeria is newspaper review.
All right, I will now have Bayo Toyabia reviewer here this morning for today's newspaper review. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kirian. Good morning. Good morning, Jume.
Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you.
Let's begin with the Nation newspaper this morning, and we have just above the masthead, we have 387 killed in 2 Kaduna councils. Governor preaches peace. You find details on page 28. $6.7 billion needed to rebuild ravaged states, says North Commission. Details on page 28. 2023, Saraki Okorocha to seek presidential ticket. You find that on page 6. Minister praises Kanu's effort on slaying Hanifa. Remember the young girl that was kidnapped and killed in Kanu. You find the details on page 3. And below the masthead, Twitter conditions for Facebook, WhatsApp. You want to know all about that? Go to page 6. Inspector, 2 others killed. Details on page 3. And the headlines we have from the Nation newspaper, government to fund petrol subsidy with 3 trillion naira in 1 year. With kickers, FEC OK's 2.557 trillion naira supplementary budget. Presidency says we will borrow to meet obligations. And going down the Nation newspaper, court stops deduction of police funds from Federation account. With riders, it is solely federal government's responsibility. And it is victory for democracy attributed to Yemsom Wike, governor of Rivers State. And at the bottom plate of the Nation newspaper, fake OKs, Federal Executive Council OKs 64.687 billion naira contracts for works FCT ministries. Page details on page 6. Hush Puppy may get 20 years. That's from the Nation newspaper this morning.
All right, and let's now turn to the Nigerian Tribune. Above the nameplate, we have NNPC presents 3 trillion subsidy bill to FEC. Council wants 103 billion naira removed by National Assembly restored in budget. That's on page 8. Ekiti APC primary. I won't accept results written in hotel rooms. According to Badaru, 183,000 party members set to elect candidates through direct primaries. It's on page 3. Saraki Okorocha joined 2023 presidential race. It's also on page 28. APC convention. Buni dismisses zoning list in circulation. That's on page 18. CJN writes judicial officers seek nomination for appointment of 6 Supreme Court justices. That's on page 19. Ekiti 2022 fire shares man BC Kolawole wins PDP primary. That's on page 5. Now the lead story on the Tribune, Rivers floors federal government. Court bars direct funding of police from Federation account, orders refund to Rivers State. That's on page 4. Now COVID-19 test, Presidential Committee deactivates passports of 200 defaulters. That's on page 5. NSAS, or your judicial panel recommends compensations on 121 petitions. Page 21. 44-year-old man feared killed. 3 policemen shot as gunmen attack Ogun community. That's on page 20. Army arrests 150 suspected political thugs going to Ekiti from Ibadan. Moves suspects to Ondo military barracks. You get that story also on page 20. We have read about this in the other paper, 3 trillion naira fuel subsidy. How NGF Labour brokered the truce. All right, and let's quickly go through the leadership newspaper. Federal government reverses EFCC NFIU's retention of 10% recovered loot. NEDC budget 6.7 billion naira for rebuilding of Northeast. That's on page 6. Fuel subsidy. Heat turns on NNPC as governors NLC query consumption figures. Governors want 411 naira pump price. Say 3 trillion subsidy not sensible. Federal government wasted 10 billion naira on refineries rehabilitation, according to Labour. That's on page 4. Court stops federal government deductions from federation account to fund own agencies. That's on page 7. Oluwafuare meets President Buhari over NDDC's board. 4 ports, and of course, the story is on page 6. Stop endorsing aspirants. ACF warns members. That's on page 6 of the leadership newspaper. Ganduje, Shekarau, Few. Pony leads APC reconciliation team on page 8. Let's bring in Bayo now for further analysis.
Thank you, Kirian. Let's start with the story on the paper or the Tribune that says Rivers State flawed federal government. This is about the Federal High Court in Abuja that has barred the federal government from further deductions from federation account to fund the Nigerian police force. The judgment was in respect of the suit brought by the Rivers State government, asserting that such deductions are illegal and unlawful. The ruling upheld the position of the Rivers State that such deductions are unconstitutional.
But in that circumstance,
yes.
you know, how has the police been funded over the years? What has been the source of funding of the police, Nigerian police over the years?
Well, now there is a Nigerian Police Trust Fund. You will recall that recently there were equipment that was provided for the Nigerian Police Fund that were launched at the police headquarters by the Minister of Police Affairs on behalf of Mr. President. They were provided from the Nigerian Police Fund. So what the ruling is saying that those are the legal means by which the police should be funded.
But who are the contributors to the fund? How was the fund raised? Because when you have such a funding body, the money comes from different sources.
Different sources as provided for under the Nigerian Police Fund, Trust Fund. So that has been identified as the source of the funding for police. But there's neither here or there. Just only about 2 weeks ago, Lagos State government itself launched several vehicles and patrols to support police in policing people in Lagos State.
Like it's done in some states too.
Several states do that. But well, anyway, it is a constitutional issue and the court has ruled in that regard. The federal government has put petrol consumption in Nigeria to 65.7 million liters daily. Accordingly, the budget of 3 trillion is proposed by the federal government to fund subsidy for the year 2022. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, after the Federal Executive Council meeting, provided this brief yesterday. She explained that 443 billion already provided in the 2022 budget was for subsidy from January to June. Following the proposition for a whole year-long provision for subsidy, the Federal Executive Council has directed that the National Assembly be approved for amendment for the fiscal provision for the 2022 budget to be increased. The provision of 2.557 trillion is required for the budget of 3 trillion presented by the NNPC.
Now, Bayo, the governors are kicking against this. Right, let's say from leadership newspaper we have, governors want 411 naira pump price.
411
pump price says that 3 trillion per liter, saying that 3 trillion subsidy not sensible. What does that? What do you understand by that?
Well, that is their own approach. By their own calculation, they are giving a figure calculated based on the per liter pump price.
If
and what
the subsidy is removed.
Yes. Now, what the federal government is doing is that they have considered that it is, considering inflation, it is most inexpedient to remove subsidy now because of the consequences, especially on the lower rank of the economy. And so what it has preferred to do is to compute the volume of petrol that is consumed on a daily basis and then look at the pump price, and the variation is what will be paid as subsidy. And that is what they are apparently challenging. But I think they will work out the arithmetics when the push comes to show. But following that proposition, the House of Representatives yesterday appointed 2 40-member committees each to look into the 2 issues. One is how do we consume in Nigeria? The second issue is what is the status of refineries, the repair of refineries in Nigeria. These two issues, if looked at, will go a long way in solving the problem. On the other hand, it may be recalled that in 2018, about 38 licenses were issued for modular refineries, but up to date, only about 2 of them are reported to have started operation. Federal government is now working on a proposal to establish 3 modular refineries in each of the oil-producing states of Niger Delta. That's about 3 in each of the 6 states. The Minister for Environment, Sharon Dekazo, in a statement says that the objective is to halt illegal artisanal refinery.
Why has this persisted? I recall that during the Obasanjo administration, about 7 licenses were issued to some companies and individuals for the purpose of establishing modular refineries. Now, that's what I'm asking. Why do people go for licenses when they are not prepared to establish modular refineries? Because this is part of the problem. I don't know. Why is government issuing licenses when people are not prepared to establish modular refineries? What is the sense in it?
In issuing licenses, there ought to be a criteria to evaluate it. I have the experience of evaluating licensees who want to own broadcasting, for instance. There are standards that are set up. If you meet those criteria, then you are granted license. So it means that you are ready to go. I don't know what operated in the area of modular licenses, but I want to assume that before you are granted a license, there must be a system by which you are evaluated to ascertain that you have the finance and the competencies to establish those modular refineries. Ironically, people came out seeking to establish modular refineries. They didn't establish. On the other hand, people were going around seeking to buy the Nigerian refineries. The curious thing is that the argument is that because refineries are run by government, they are not productive. But if they want to buy it at a cheap rate, and it will be run by the same Nigerians in the country.
Don't we begin to ask ourselves the questions, why are the refineries not working? Do we smell sabotage there?
Refineries have not been working because refineries are supposed to undergo what is called turnaround maintenance periodically. Over the years, these turnaround maintenances have been compromised. But refineries are that you don't switch them off. The moment they come on, they have to keep on running, whether they are producing or not. That is why you hear news that refineries are still working, workers are there, are being paid, because they have to keep on running the system. So you don't shut the refinery down.
Many Nigerians, have opined, that there is sabotage in the system, right? Because after spending $10 billion, that's what leadership newspaper is saying here, that the federal government has spent about $10 billion on refineries rehabilitation. And to date, of course, we know that the refineries are producing below capacity.
Well, in the last strong refinery turnaround maintenance that is going on now, is expected that between now and 2023, 4 refineries will be repaired and will be running. And it is also expected that by the end of the year, Dangote refinery will come, and so the pressure of importing petrol will reduce, and the dangers of subsidy will also be narrowed down.
Well, Bayo, on that note, we thank you so much for coming this morning.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you as always. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break now. When we return, our conversation on the national policy on 5G network will begin. Don't go away.
Period.
You won't go shake your body. Instead, they make it calm down. It a form say sabi. You want to grow 6 packs in a day. I beg you not to pass your power. You want to show yourself, oh.
Whatever your size, find it with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# now to get the plan that suits you. Airtel, the smartphone network.
The center is purposely established in order to provide these services that are examinations, medical examinations, and investigations that were not provided for in Kano as well as the entire Northwest region. It's equipped with modern technological equipment in terms of radiological services. We have MRI 1.5 Tesla. We have digital X-ray as well as 4D ultrasound equipment. The importance of the center cannot be overemphasized. Just within 1 year, the center attended to thousands and numerous patients as well as medical examinations. NKDC is established in order also to provide these healthcare facilities as a discounted price.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. Arise, O Nigerians. Let's applaud the courage of Flight Lieutenant Abayomi Dairo, aka the Aggressor, for his skillful and dogged escape from the bloodthirsty bandits in the forest of Zamfara State. 3 hearty cheers also to all military and security personnel who are tirelessly protecting fellow Nigerians from insurgency and banditry while maintaining peace and order. Nigerians are proud of Abayomi Dairo and all our gallant men and women in uniform for sacrificing so much to keep us safe. We admire your courage and we say thank you. God bless the armed forces. God bless Nigeria. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
So still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Of course, as a prompt for our conversation this morning on national policy on 5G, here is Joseph Olsen with a background package.
Innovation in communication service has evolved with mobile technology space witnessing major revolutions. For the first generation of mobile technology, 1G, which enabled the phone to be used away from home, many countries are now keen into the development, and at the 12th Yearly Global Mobile Broadband Forum held in Dubai recently, it was disclosed that commercial 5G network deployment is now in 176 countries, serving more than 50 million subscribers. Nigeria had a 3-month trial of the technology in 2019 with a view to understanding the health and security implications. The result shows that World Health Organization and the International Telecommunication Union confirming the Federal Executive Council on the 8th of September 2021 approved the national policy on 5G network for Nigeria's digital economy. The policy is designed to achieve the following among others: effective deployment of 5G to cover major urban areas by 2025, ensure security of 5G ecosystem and protection of data, ensure that international best practices and globally accepted standards and specifications are entrenched, ensure required infrastructure for successful deployment strategy of 5G network. President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday launched a national policy on 5G, directing all security institutions to leverage the technology when deployed, as it will boost the economy and enhance security in the country.
It can enhance connectivity, improve healthcare, support education, foster smart cities, and boost agriculture, among other advantages that it gives. It will also support security institutions and play a key role in boosting our efforts towards enhancing security.
Does Nigeria have the capacity to engage this mobile technology at this critical time of the nation's economy? What are the benefits to the country and citizens? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will shed light on the national policy on 5G network for Nigeria's digital economy.
And joining us in the studio to discuss the 5G technology is Abdul Hakim Ajijola, Chair, African Union Cybersecurity Expert Group. As
Good
usual,
morning. Thank you for inviting
Thank you so much
me.
for coming.
Thank you.
A regular face here. And also joining us on the conversation is Olabode James, Cloud Technologies Architect. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you.
And
yeah.
Okay, via Zoom, we have Dr. Bayero Agabi, member of the Government Technical Working Group of the Digital Identity Ecosystem and Vice President, Nigeria Internet Group, and President, Center for Cyber Awareness and Development, CSAD. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Well, all right, gentlemen, you're welcome. As a matter of fact, the issue of 5G is not new. I recall that in 2020, during the advent of COVID-19, globally a lot was said about 5G and the negative perceptions about this technology. But today the world is now aware that this technology is not dangerous to human health. Hence the launch of the policy by Nigeria, joining other nations who have keyed into 5G technology. So it's good that we're discussing this very topic this morning. Well, we had promoted the discussion of the policy itself, but I understand that Abdul Hakim Ajijola is well in tune with this policy. So as a way of laying a background for this conversation, what is your understanding of this policy? What is the direction of this policy with respect to the establishment of 5G technology in Nigeria?
Well, first of all, let's understand that we are in the 21st century, and the 21st century is predicted to be the wireless century. It's also predicted to be the cloud century. And so 5G is part of a general progression. And just for our own understanding, the people have already started working on the detailed specifications and equipment for 6G. And the 7G is also under development. So this is just simply part of a general technology progression. Now, with specific regard to the policy, I think it touches on many of the key aspects one is concerned about. Because part of the challenge you find sometimes with the deployments of these new technologies is that there's not enough handshake between some of the different players. So the policy tries to reinforce what are the governance mechanisms. So you have, for example, NCC at the forefront. The policy also tries to look at issues relating to spectrum. And spectrum really are airwaves. And spectrum is a national resource that government manages on behalf of the citizens. And also, it does touch on issues relating to security, which is also of great concern. So those are some of the key takeaways. I would say that what it's trying to do is just trying to articulate a broader governance structure so that other players, other participants can key in the best interest of what I'd call optimization and efficiency for pushing the economy forward. At least this is my understanding.
Okay, Olabode James, Ajijola said it's the cloud century. What does that mean?
So essentially, looking back to like 10 years, we didn't have as many devices as we currently have. You realize that many people, you have maybe 2 smartphones, you have a smart TV at home. Now our cars can even communicate. You have a lot of things on the wireless network. Now you get to realize, okay, are they able to communicate with one another? Actually, what drives that communication is the cloud. So essentially, we are saying that, okay, there's a wireless network in which devices are able to talk to one another. The interesting thing about the 5G is the fact that it is more from a cloud architect perspective where efficiency is being improved, capacity is also being improved. It's like you're moving to a bigger space.
How big is the space?
The space is over 1,000 times bigger than the current space you have. Such that, you know, like a while back, MTN had network problems. We couldn't communicate. That was the after effect of a network congestion. Imagine that in the next few years, that congestion is going to be more. If you don't move to a bigger space, that will allow for more devices and more communication. Because every day you get to realize that new devices are being activated. So the question, a time comes whereby there will be congestions, and people, you know how technology is a part of our life now. Imagine a point comes whereby we are not even able to communicate. It's going to lead to crisis. So that's the idea of the expansion of space and more efficiency.
Okay, now let's go to Dr. Bairo Agabi, member of the Government Technical Working Group of the Digital Identity Ecosystem. So, well, as your first contribution to this conversation, lead us into a good understanding of 5G network, because many Nigerians would want to have a deeper understanding of this technology, and of course would want to also key into it. You listened to the policy which was launched yesterday. Let's have your own view about the policy and the practicability of its deployment in Nigeria.
Okay, good morning again, and I'd like to sincerely thank you for this opportunity, and also pay my homage to Mr. Ajijola there. He's a great man. He's been in this industry struggling to see how Nigeria can be digitally safe and secure. Be that as it may, this has been in the works, and we know when it culminated when the federal government, at the FEC level, agreed that the 5G was safe and secure for Nigerians. And subsequent to that was in December last year, when NCC came up with the auction and they were winners. And so if you take a look at the Nigeria, now going to your question. Yes, Nigeria 5G is not like 1G, it's not like a 2G going on an improvement on 1G, or the 4G an improvement on the existing one. The 5G is a different model of technology for communication. And that is why it is eliciting a lot of debate, around it, whether security, business, innovation, and security. And these are the things that have come to be within 5G, because the speed and the activation that it can bring to a community, a business, and a nation is huge. And so it has its challenges, which can be surmounted, but it has much more of its pluses, if well harnessed. And from what I'm seeing, we have a minister who does not sleep, So he's always doing his research and he's intellectually mobile, like some politicians would say. And so if you take a look at 5G is the way it works, we're talking about, autonomous cars, we're talking about the digital economy becomes, running on its own, so it will have a lot of impact that we may require skills, that we might require skills, knowledge, a lot of awareness to carry it on. Otherwise, the security issues that are going to come with this will come as a result of the need for everyone to be online. Because as we all rush to be online, the susceptibility of anyone or the vulnerability that comes with it, we have to find a way to curb it or prepare for it. Like Adijola will always say, where are the cyber army to police the Nigeria cyber system when it comes? So it has come, right now. And then we also have to think of it to bring about what I call a converged system. Converged knowledge, converged institutions, converged policies, so a converged environment. For instance, the telephone that we use is regulated by the NCC. And the content in it, some of it, the videos and all that, is regulated by the NCC. So if you understand what I'm saying, the 5G will bring about an environment that can make running of governance cheaper and compact. So that is another one. So we can borrow a leaf from Ofcom or FCC. And then another one is innovation. It's going to provide a lot of employment, because the kind of skills that we are going to require will make us available and make us powerful, make us with the requisite skills, to be able to provide, make us businessmen and women, and employing people, not just government employing, employment now, employing people now. And then it's going to have a major impact on education, just as we have seen in the post-COVID, So a lot of us can have degrees from our homes right now, but it's going to be much more better than that, because we are going to have fast-paced, a smart society. But we have to be ready for that, because our roads have to be good, our systems must be right, and the things we do, our knowledge must be up to date in order for us to cope with the new system that is being unfolded. For me, it's a good development.
Dr. Bayero Agabi, I'm still going to stay with you. In simple terms, tell us the advantage of the 5G network compared to 2G, 3G, 4G, and the emerging technology 5G will facilitate. In simple terms, just break it down for us.
If I hear you very well, you are talking about the present technology. Am I right?
Yeah, we're talking about the advantage of the 5G network and how it will facilitate emerging technologies in Nigeria.
What I can see, though I didn't get you very well, but if I can pick, choose from that, because the kind of impact that you're going to have is going to have impact on artificial intelligence, for instance, augmented realities and virtual realities, robotics, and all of those things. That require that, even for media, we have to retune our minds, retune our skills, retune our knowledge in order to be relevant. Otherwise, people who never studied mass communication, people who never studied media, will take advantage of what is coming or what has come to push aside those who really understand the ethics and the profession of media. And you know what is become the status quo? Those that you see every now and then using these, facilities to work. That is impact on the media. And you talk about health. We are now beginning to see people who never studied medicine, and they are bringing a kind of intervention, that can assist in delivering medicine from one place to another. So we are seeing people who never studied mechanics, and they are bringing up apps that can help you to get a mechanic fix your car or, diagnose what is wrong with your car. So the impact is going to be in numbers. So the earlier we prepare for it, the better for us, so that as a nation, as a people, as institutions and policymakers, we need this proper, deep, awareness to be able to build a digital Nigeria that is secure and believable.
Thank you for your initial submission this morning on this topic. Let's return to Abdul Hakim Ajijola. Now we are advancing technologically. That is primarily what it means because of the deployment of the expected deployment of 5G. But in that connection, will require infrastructure to drive it, and which of course, like you said, there's not enough handshake, perhaps because of the digital divide that exists. Because whatever technology that we are adopting as a nation, we do not have the capacity in terms of local content and what have you. All these are driven by satellites, right? And of course, I know that Nigeria's communication entity, relies so much more on foreign satellites, for instance. So tell us about infrastructure that Nigeria would require to drive the 5G technology.
Wow, that's quite a loaded question. First and foremost, let me build on some of the things that have been said. 5G is going to provide faster links, which means that response times will be lower, which means you can transfer ever-increasing amounts of data. You're going to have better quality of links. So, for example, your voice, your video, these are going to improve tremendously. You're also going to have improvement of interactions, whether it is gaming, whether it is surveillance, and so on and so forth. And those improved interactions will allow you to also work remotely, not simply Zoom, so to speak, but, for example, you can control a mining equipment deep underground while you are safely in a porter cabin somewhere. You can control, for example, agricultural equipment or factory equipment or equipment in a biohazard or a fire area from a distance. So these are the increasing things. Or indeed, you could literally be in Abuja and control an equipment in Burkina Faso. Now, having said that, you are very correct. There is a challenge of infrastructure. And very specifically with 5G, when you look at its precursor 4G, the distance between towers may be anywhere from 10, 20, 30 kilometers. Mm-hmm. Okay? In 5G, the distance between the cell site nodes is more on the order of 0.1 to 0.2 kilometers, 1 to 200 meters, which means you're going to need many, many more.
Many more poles.
Yes. However, they are much cheaper. So, there's a trade-off. So you're going to have a higher density, but the equipment itself is a bit cheaper. But that equipment will consume power, even if it's solar power. Yeah. That equipment does need to talk to each other, even if they are talking to themselves, which goes back to this issue of spectrum. And again, let me just dwell on it for a moment. And like I said, it's a shared national resource. So it belongs to you, it belongs to him, it belongs to the viewers, it belongs to me. Government manages it on our behalf. There's a reason why we have seen the digitization of broadcasting. And the reason is that when you digitize, you use less spectrum. So that spectrum, when NTA digitizes and other stations, the quantum of spectrum they use reduces, which means you have freed up spectrum, which is what government is now selling to telecoms. Because really, which radio or TV station has $270-something million to pay for a license and spectrum. And this goes back to even the convergence issue. But also, as my esteemed colleague here had said, when you increase the space several fold, it also means you increase the threat surface, the attack surface. So these are all the different kinds of concerns. But back to your core issue, we don't know, for example, the specifications of the proposed new satellite that Nigeria wants to build. But certainly, the satellite we have was designed and implemented for an era, not necessarily 5G. And so it's not that the satellite may not have some utility, the current one we have, but I think you're going to see much more utilization and leveraging of fiber optic cables, which now means you're going to have to dig and lay cables, which is also a cost. And the bottom line of all of this is that I would suspect that 5G, especially for the first few years, is going to be quite expensive. I believe that as, you know, as they say, better soup na monikila. So, you know, so it is going to be much more expensive. It is going to be much more demanding. And it's not just demanding in terms of the requirement for infrastructure, but the tolerance. You know, it is much more fine-tuned.
The one that we have in the orbit, you know, presently. I was privileged, you know, to be in China when it was relaunched in 2011.
Correct.
It has a lifespan of 15 years.
Correct.
And of course, we have about 3 years now that will go. Now, are you saying that with all the 40 transponders, all the bands, KU band, C band, and what have you, that are part of the components of that satellite, are you saying that we don't have any 5G component in that satellite that the nation could utilize?
No, what I'm saying is that 5G is newer than the satellite. So even though you try to design a satellite forward-thinking, which I believe is what was done, the point is that as of the time it was being developed, all the 5G specifications were not set. Yeah. You see? So, but the point is that the satellite is still useful. Okay? It's just that we must make sure that the new one is now designed, the specs are designed upwards, so that it can now accommodate not just, as I mentioned, 5G, but also the 6G that is coming, because this is part of the general growth trend. So
we keep going to 6G, 7G, 8G.
Well, to be honest with you, you know, everything moves forward.
Well, you're not part of government, all right. So this additional question may not, you may not be the right person to answer that, but I know you have an understanding of what we're talking about. If there is a new satellite in the offing, usually satellites are not off-the-shelf products.
Correct.
It's designed. It takes a little bit 3 to 4 or 5 years before you can design and launch a satellite. So if you have an idea of this, are we expecting any satellite to be launched soon? And if you have an idea, I don't know whether you do, to what extent has this gone? Because to drive 5G, and for a nation such as Nigeria, the developing nation, to rely on foreign satellites to drive it, as right onto that, it's going to be very expensive. What do you think?
Well, the bottom line answer is I don't know. I'm actually not part of the loop in terms of the core thinking about the satellite. But I can say that the satellites does have a scope and a function. Is it enough? I'm not sure. Will we have to rely on foreign satellites? I believe we will. And added to this mix, as we were talking before we came in, there's a whole new generation of satellites, Starlink. Now, the kind of capacities that Starlink, Project Juniper, and OneWeb, who are putting thousands, I mean, Starlink is looking at 12,000 satellites. Though they are micro, So they're a different technology platform, but they all service the same thing, broadband. The cost differential is going to be very, very, very difficult for a single sat. In fact, even if you had 5, you are still a tiny, tiny player in the spectrum. If Elon Musk has 12,000 satellites, I mean, how many do you need to have, to begin to compete? And what kind of amortization and financing can he get? So, these are the other factors. And I'm sure government is actually considering them. But really, 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 I believe that 5G will be mainly underpinned by fiber. And that is why, if you notice, even in the document itself, there tends to be a preponderance for 5G at the beginning in the cities. You see? Will it go to my village? I hope so. But that may not be in the first phase. Let me put it nicely.
It might take some time.
It might take a little while, yes.
Okay. Let me join Olabode James. For a successful rollout of the 5G network, we need stakeholders to key into the initiative, the idea. And what kind, as a stakeholder in the technology sector, what kind of synergy do you have with government, so that we'll be able to see a favorable outcome when the 5G is finally launched?
Thank you very much for the question. With respect to that, it is not even a choice for people in private sector. It is not whether you are in or you're out. It is that you have to be in, because there's a space for expanded opportunities for everyone. When he was talking about remote work, for instance, in the tech space that I operate, you have a lot of young people working for companies in the US without the need for them to travel. You have a lot of young people working for companies in the UK without the need to travel. So you have a space in which by the time the 5G comes or rolls out, you have an expanded opportunity for a lot of young Nigerians, not just to operate in the Nigerian market, but also to operate effectively on the African market. That's with the AFTA, and also on a global scale. You're competing with the Indians. And the truth is this, which is also something I've observed, young Nigerians can compete favorably well with anyone from anywhere in the world. So what is needed is like, okay, give them opportunities, let them learn, let them grow, and allow them opportunity to build solutions that can be useful beyond the shores of this country.
So you mean our youth who are, technologically serve, who feel as if the world is at their feet, because we just have a teeming population of our youth who are ready, to hit the ground running. Exactly. Well, how can government encourage them to key into the plan, the policy itself?
Okay,
if they have access, I'm talking about access to it now.
Exactly.
So I'm sure it's going to be expensive.
Essentially, once government is able to facilitate introduction of this technology or build the infrastructure, support the infrastructure, and also a form of subsidizing the initial cost, I don't know if that is possible, such that it can be affordable for a lot of young companies to be able to come on board of these platforms, so that it can be like in the form of taxation, whereby some of these things is used in supporting the infrastructure, such that the entry cost for a lot of young companies will be significantly lower, such that they can compete effectively with companies in India or in Pakistan or in China. The better for everybody.
Well, you just talked about subsidy. We are still grappling with
subsidy.
Subsidy. And you're talking about that subsidy in 5G,
in
technology, which we're expecting to, drive the economy according to the policy. Well, thank you. Let's return to Dr. Bayero Agabi. As I would like you to speak to some of the issues raised by the two gentlemen here, especially our friend Ajijola here, with respect to the issue of infrastructure, facility, the expensive nature of 5G, and what is expected of government to ensure that there is an enabling environment to, of course, bring in the private sector to be part of the policy. What do you think?
Thank you. Unfortunately, my audio is not so good here, but I could pick anything from you. Infrastructure. I'm not someone who praises government, when it's not necessary. But in this case, when you talk about the telecom infrastructure, or I have seen government make, certain moves that are, that you can really, thumbs up for. For instance, one of the major hindrances that has hampered the development of broadband in Nigeria in the past many years, was let me put it this way, the cable system, that will get it to the end user, okay? And that issue was, when you have transversed various states, you have to pay different taxes and all of that. And I knew around 2013, government negotiated that to about 145 per linear meter. That was not, it was not, put into use until this government came on, and as we speak. So to take fiber from Lagos to other cities and going for the last mile is not as difficult as it used to be. So that means that broadband connectivity will be much more available. But availability is different from affordability. And then if you cannot afford it, how do you sustain, having it and then using it? So that's where I picked a word from the other young man in the studio, yes. So that is where innovating for change and innovating to destroy, yourself.
Well, I do hope that
he needs 5G. Actually, he definitely needs 5G. Yes.
Reconnected, and when we have 5G, I believe that
yes, the connection.
We won't be having this kind of freezing. Because he's about the only government man on this panel, and we had planned more questions for you, especially with respect to government's preparedness for the launch proper. The policy has been launched, but then we have to go into the practical attempts to ensure the realization of the 5G initiative. Well, we have no choice than to return to Ajijola once more, who has been in the digital world for a very long time.
Who is still in the digital world.
Now,
thank you.
now, the launch has been established. We all know that. What should be the next step of government going forward? What should be the next step towards the realization of this initiative?
Let us address first, part of the next step is to address some concerns. For example, there has been, in the last few weeks, particularly in the US, but also in some other countries, a lot of concern by airlines that the 5G signal interferes with the altimeter, the radio altimeters, which aircraft use below 1,000 meters when they are coming into land, and it tells the pilot how high the plane is off the ground. It's not something you would want to miscalculate, and especially if it is in bad weather. And so pilots and airlines, are really asking, for example, in the US. And it boils down to a couple of things. Arguably, the altimeters themselves used in aircraft don't necessarily all meet similar standards for protection against radio interference, which is what 5G is a type of radio, so that they may not have the same kind of shielding. So I would really want to urge, particularly the NCAA, NCC, to begin to look at these issues so that at least, we nip it in the bud. Now, having said that, part of the reason it has come to pass in this way in the US is because the previous administration in the US really was a bit lackadaisical in terms of articulating some of these policies and some. So to that extent, actually, this policy puts Nigeria a bit ahead And I think that's a major plus. The second area of concern comes back to the providers of equipment. Now, across Africa, of which Nigeria is a part, 50% of all handsets are from one country, China. But in terms of the network infrastructure, 70% is from one country, China. Now, to be fair to China, equipment seems to work well, and certainly it's much cheaper than anybody else. So there's a very good business case for it. But I think from especially a broader national security perspective, dependency on one country. Now, you may be using different companies from that country, but the day you and that country have a disagreement, there are issues.
They're lucky. Yeah.
Will there be a shutdown?
There will be issues. And this also implies that the day that you are owing that country, and remember, we do owe this country. Now, the policy actually, to be fair, does touch on this. But I would want to use our time to chat here to say, look, really, the Ministry of Communications, the NCC, those players do need to sit down with the national security operatives to really look at how we can balance these things. You're trying to optimize, cost, you're trying to optimize sourcing. So there are a number of balances that have to be achieved. But we have to find a way to be able to not put all our eggs in one basket. So in terms of going forward and implementation, interference with existing technologies as exemplified by altimeters and also equipment sourcing, I think are two big issues that the relevant authorities need to address.
I need to stay with you more. The issue of cyber attack came up while you were answering a question. Let's look at the President Buhari's immediate directive, to security institutions to leverage on the 5G when deployed to beef up securities, in some areas in the country. Talking about cyber attack, how can the information, our security information, be protected?
Well, I look at these things from the prism of people, process, technology. And I'll give you an example. This morning, I happened to be driving here for this discussion, and I was in a car. That is technology. Somebody else in the traffic was also in a car. That is technology. And there was a traffic light. That is technology. And I stopped. The other man just went through the red light. So my point is that it's not really technology is the third leg. The first leg is you and I, people.
Processing it.
Well, first of all, people. Our attitude. The second thing is the processing, which in terms of rules, regulations, even policies. So all I'm trying to get at is that at the end of the day, even with cybersecurity, we've mentioned that the threat surface has increased, which gives back the actors more opportunity. Mr. Kirian has spoken about satellite, especially foreign satellites, because once your data hits a foreign satellite, we no longer have control. So there's issues of data sovereignty. Indeed, when you look at, for example, we talked about Starlink and Project Juniper. These are American-based satellite companies. Do we have jurisdiction? So you see, these are the kind of things that have to be looked at, have to be considered as we move forward. As my colleague has rightly said, we do not have much choice. We do have a choice to stay in the dark ages, but I'm sure most of us would not be happy with that choice. But in moving forward into the 21st century, we do have to begin to weigh those issues. Yes.
Okay, surprisingly, America as a nation is not, in a hurry, really, on this issue of 5G. That surprises me. Because from what you have enumerated, China seems to be leading in this connection. Perhaps South Korea as well is also into it, and a few number of countries as well. Olabode James, are we going to see a world driven by technology, and at a point in time, we could begin to have issues with this technology? The altimeters, if I got him right, that he mentioned, which aircraft operators or airlines are beginning to complain about, is a key issue here. And perhaps other hazards that could go with 5G. I do believe, quite frankly, that in every setting, perhaps technology or any other setting, there is this possibility of having hazards here and there. Do you foresee any of these hazards? If yes, how can we also use this 5G to address such challenge?
Okay, so the truth is this: there will always be hazards, especially the ones not anticipated, because most of the time we don't know the future. Like he said, threat surfaces is a lot broader now. So with respect to the fact that you're having more devices coming on board, what is just left for practitioners like myself and a lot of people like me is to keep learning. And there will be gaps. So it's to keep filling the gaps such that threat areas or threat spots can be reduced significantly, especially as you expand the technology surfaces.
My colleague asked a question about cybercrime. We know that 5G is going to enhance the operations in the communication world, using devices and what have you. Would that also not trigger efficiency in cybercrime? Because those who are in that business will also understand the workings of 5G and could leverage on it to also enhance their operations.
Especially hackers.
Exactly. And actually, that is the power. I like the concept of the blockchain. You get to also realize that, okay, as you have threat surfaces increasing, you also have technologies that are making it extremely difficult and impossible for you to compromise certain systems. So when you deploy solutions like with 5G, it will be very easy for you to deploy, like whether it is an ENA, which is a lot more secure than a lot of other technology before it. So you get to realize the hackers will need to learn more because you have also increased the threshold for you to attack systems, which is one of the advantages of the 5G.
So how would the network rollout look like, and its spread in the area of deployment, timeline and technology standards?
Okay, so
how high will it be?
Okay, so essentially we are looking at say like 2-3 years for a lot of people to start experiencing these things. Of course, there have been the pilot, which was successful. So the next phase is, okay, for practitioners like myself to start building solutions. And the truth is, people have started, leveraging blockchain, using artificial intelligence, even including industrialization, whereby, just like he also mentioned, whereby someone can be in Nigeria, can be in Abuja, and control a robot in, say, Akwa Ibom or Cross River, or monitor the activities of whatever it is that's happening in a factory in, say, Bayelsa. So those are some of the things. So we're looking at, say, in a couple of years, we'll all start experiencing some of the benefits.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back to Dr. Bayero Agabi. I hear the Zoom is better now. If you can hear me well. Okay, we seem to have lost him again. Mr. Ajijola, let's talk about the mandate of the Nigerian Communications Commission, which is vital in the implementation of the 5G network policy in Nigeria.
Yes, before we get to that, let's just finish on the cybersecurity.
Yeah, cybersecurity.
Part of the challenge we have as a society is that there will always be bad actors. I think, this is a given. The issue for us as a society is, can we out-recruit the bad actors? Can we channel the energy, the capacity? Our people are very smart. Can we channel them into developing cloud solutions? Can we channel them into developing legitimate income streams? You see, I think this is where, as a society, and the foundation for this, frankly, is education, by whatever means necessary. So Sorry, I forgot your question. You asked...
the importance of the,
okay, the
Nigerian,
NCC.
the NCC as a vital tool in the deployment of the 5G.
Well, it's sine qua non. You know, it is the primary governance mechanism. There's also the National Frequency Management Council, chaired by the Honorable Minister, of which I think the NCC is maybe the secretariat or so. That's also part of the governance mechanisms. But I would like to bring back what Bairo had mentioned, the issue of convergence. It is clear to many of us today that, for example, in terms of spectrum management, really some aspects of the NBC really need to be brought into what some of us would call a multimedia management agency. So there needs to be components. In fact, I would say basically all of NCC and much of NBC do need to come together sooner or later. We've seen this in other countries. I think Malaysia, for example, they have their multimedia commission. So we've seen this in other countries where, for the sake of efficiencies, because you cannot be bringing these very exacting technologies, and yet your governance and management system is so diversified and all over the place. So that I would say not only is NCC critically important, it actually needs to be strengthened by broadening some of the scope of its activities. And I just gave the example of, with Spectrum, which television station today would pay the kind of money that telecoms are paying. So it makes sense for even the spectrum components of radio and TV to be brought into, you know, so that one entity manages the spectrum from end to end. Right now we have, you know, NCC manages a part, then you have a little part for NBC, then you have another part for NCC. You know, the little part is radio, then NCC continues, then you have another part, television, and then going up to satellite. There might have been a logic for it in times gone by, but I think the technology has converged so far that you know, the regulatory bodies also government needs to look at that. And especially in an era where we are trying to save money by, you know, making government more efficient. It makes sense.
But the ICT sector generated more money in 2020 and 2021 than any other sector in Nigeria. Indeed, and even at a global level, Netflix had a larger valuation than ExxonMobil. So, you know. So there's still, you know, apart from the skepticism at the time that the 5G was being sort of introduced to people in Nigeria, some are saying, if everything I have, all my data is up there, what happens if it's not there anymore? Do I lose it? How can you get it back? We saw a situation a few months ago when there was a misconfiguration of Facebook, well, now called Meta, and WhatsApp. And I think it caused a lot of consternation. But the truth of the matter is that you do need to make sure that some of your key information is still backed up with you. Because what is the cloud? The cloud is just somebody else's computers, really, at the end of the day. You know? But it's just that they have, because they have many, they have the advantages of scale to bring down the cost. You know, so you from a cost perspective, it makes more economic sense to move to the cloud. But having said that, certainly, for example, like your national identification data, I would definitely keep it local. Okay. You know, and I'm sure, for example, certain security agencies, I would definitely keep, you know, their data local. But other than that, even if the cloud, for some reason, you get disconnected from it, usually the information is much more recoverable than if, for example, if the information is only in your phone and you drop it in a bucket of water, you know, that's the end of your information. Yeah.
But usually when it's on the cloud, the provider has made sure that there are certain redundancies so that when you get connectivity back, you can recover. But anyway, the expert is here. I will defer to him.
Yes.
Let's listen.
Speak on that, really, and again, added to that, the issue of convergence, right? And if everybody migrates into 5G, for instance, would there be a possibility of having a convergence to the point where perhaps we will have crashes, loss of data, and what have you?
Okay, so also the truth is also this, with technology is always improving. So there's also improvement in encryption technology, such that while this information might be away from you, so the possibility of a bad actor accessing that data, we are also making sure that it's becoming more difficult for them to access that by improving the encryption technology. So essentially that is that. So with 5G, it's going to create space for much more advanced encryption technology, such that you're sure your data is going to be more secure.
Mm-hmm.
Also, and just like he said, the truth is not everything you keep in the cloud. There are certain national security-based information, you keep them local. But then while encryption is improving, you can keep the rest there, but for certain sensitive information, you keep them local.
All right. I just hope that Nigerians are going to really key into this 5G technology, because from all you've said this morning, it appears to be the next direction that the world is going technologically. Okay, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll continue with the program.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Since coming into office in 2015, the Buhari administration has recorded unprecedented achievements in all sectors, especially in the provision of infrastructure, which is the key to economic growth. Never in the history of this country has any other administration done so much with so little. Recall that when this administration came into office, the price of crude oil, which provides for 80% of Nigeria's budgetary revenues and 95% of foreign exchange earning, dropped drastically, thus reducing the amount of resources available to the federal government. In spite of this, the administration has continued apace with massive infrastructure developments.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who's a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The counsel of our fathers
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
You're welcome back, and you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We've been discussing about the national plan for 5G network launched by President Muhammadu Buhari. Mr. Ajijola, let me come back to you about people being afraid that with the launch of the 5G, a lot of jobs will be lost. Are there also opportunities for new jobs?
Definitely. Every time a new technology comes to pass, some jobs will go because of automation, and clearly new jobs will be created. For example, today we have many young people who are working with NFTs, non-fungible tokens, whatever that means. But the point is that it's a whole new era, you know, and basically an NFT is something that is digitally unique. You know, for example, the first tweet ever tweeted, you can't replicate it. So that is an example of an NFT. But my point is that there are now people who trade in it. It has become a commodity. We've seen the rise of peer-to-peer cryptocurrencies, for example.
Which crashed recently.
Well, this is true. But we also know paper currencies also crash, as some of us have been experiencing. So the issue is really, as a society, what are we doing to make sure that especially our young people are prepared, motivated, and empowered to be able to capitalize on these new technologies, not just in their own legitimate best interest, but also in the legitimate best interest of our nation. So the chief executive, Pichal, of Google, recently compared the development in 5G and artificial intelligence to the development of fire and its fundamental impact on civilization. You can imagine a time before fire was, we knew how to create fire. You know, how did we cook our food? We didn't, you see? So while, as Mr. Olude has correctly said, we cannot predict tomorrow, but we can project. And we do know that things are going to change. So very quickly, the question society must ask itself, what are the skill sets our young people need to have so that they can be competitive in a 5G world or in an AI-driven world? And frankly, there are things that technology, for now, cannot do. Technology is not creative. Technology is not very thoughtful. So anything that is a bit creative, things like music, you know, things like art, you know, even new models of like business models, these are things that human beings for now, for the foreseeable future, can do well. So I think our society, especially academia, really need a lot of refocusing to be able to understand the skill sets required. Many people, for example, they say they preach STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But what is happening in countries like Korea, South Korea that you mentioned, they have moved on to STEAM. The A is now arts, because that's the creativeness that technology, for now, does not have. So I think as a society, this is the direction we need to go.
I think, gentlemen, I think we're beginning to really unravel some critical facts, you know, concerning this 5G. You just spoke about unemployment that could generate, and that too leads me to ask Olabude James, who is in the private sector, to tell us the kind of skills that you know, are required now for perhaps the younger generation of Nigerians to key into this 5G. Because you said we're expecting 6G, 7G. and what have you. And if there are new skills that one needs to acquire in operating in the digital world, what nature of it? And are there plans for some of you who are in the private sector to stimulate training for some sort of Nigerians who will also key into the 5G generation?
Okay, thank you so much. I actually like what is happening in Nigeria now. When you go online, you see coding for kids.
Yes, yes.
And this is the time we emphasize more of such. In those days, it was okay to be a lawyer or a doctor. But the world is moving. The coding for kids, programming, computer programming. How do we program computers or even program robots? And those are some of the skills that should be accessible to as many people in this country, young people, as possible. We need to teach coding. We need to teach more of maths. We need to teach more of, and then combine it with engineering, because that's like the point where robotic comes in. So a lot of maths, a lot of programming, a lot of coding. That is the way forward.
Well, are you suggesting that we should begin to include 5G and its components in our school curriculum?
As a matter of fact, we should. The interesting thing is this. Nigerians, before now, it was always an American company to come and deploy solutions or whatever it is in Nigeria. But now Nigerian solutions are also now being used outside Nigeria, in the US, in the UK. So the question is, how do we encourage our young people to produce more of such? And it is by telling them, okay, introduce curriculum, 5G into the curriculum. Let Nigerians build solutions that Americans can use. Let Nigerians build solutions that might even be useful in China. And that's the way forward.
Tell me something. As a layperson, I have my phone that I use. Do I need to upgrade my phone?
Yes, you will
to
need
be able to access the 5G?
Yes. Just think about the benefits. Something that is more efficient, faster.
What kind of phone do I need?
Okay, so you need to
Or device, computer, whatever I'm going to use.
I like the way Mr. Ajijola mentioned it earlier, the specifications.
Yes.
So when you look at, say, 2021 specification for mobile phones, 2022, we need to buy phones from that era, 2021, 2022. Not all mobile phones can access even 4G. So, but from 2021, 2022, you look at the top-end Samsung or the top-end high-end iPhones. Like specifically iPhone 13 was designed for 5G. The Samsung S21 was designed for 5G. So let's start using devices.
That's expensive.
There are cheaper.
Not everybody can access. What about the Android phone, the Infinix?
Having captured your postulations this morning on the topic in question, and looking at all the components of 5G deployment in Nigeria, as it were, do you sincerely believe that Nigeria is ready for 5G deployment to drive our technology?
Ready or not, it's here, and we are going to have to jump in and use it. Many times in life, you are not, you don't move into a fully completed building. It is when you enter, you begin to touch up one or two areas. So to the extent, I'm not sure that, it's a question of whether we are ready or not. The tide, the wave is moving, and it's going to carry us along. If I may go back just very briefly to the issues of employment, because I think it's crucial to being ready. ISC Squared in 2020 did a global survey and found out that there is a 3.1 million deficit. That means that there are 3.1 million vacancies in cybersecurity. And this is going to grow. So this is an opportunity for our youth. And then when we talk of what to study, yes, mathematics, but interestingly, history, mathematics, and philosophy are key areas. Why? Because they are all they lean heavily on logic, which is actually the skill set that you need. So it's not always about you must do maths, physics, chemistry. There are many paths to getting to, And so in terms of, again, back to Mr. Kirian, I'm trying to tie them together. readiness. For me, the readiness is not really about the technology, because the technology is buy and put. We have to get the people ready. We have to train them. We have to create the awareness. Is there an opportunity for my famous Mama Alakara to leverage 5G? When you look at some of the big eateries around the country that have evolved, they are really just, a growing up of Mama Put.
Yes.
So the issue is that, can Mama Put or can the vulcanizer leverage 5G to increase or improve his livelihood? And I think this is what society needs. That's when you know we are ready.
I would think that is a long dream for the Mama Akara and the vulcanizer.
But she uses the phone to check her credit.
Exactly.
Already. So
let's join Dr. Bayero Agabi. Time is running out. Unfortunately, your Zoom, you really need a 5G. I keep saying that. And, Mr. Ajijola is saying that we have to get the people ready. And you're saying that, okay, Nigeria may become the largest 5G subscriber in Africa. What is the implication of that on our economy?
And you also
okay, let me take it from where my boss, stops with the Mama Akara. They say if you are not educated, if you do not know how to read and write, it will be difficult for Mama Akara, to join, the digital space and make so much out of it. So what I will advocate, which is part of the impact we are talking about, is the appropriate education and knowledge that is required to function in the digital space. So even our policies will have to be up to date. Our skills will have to be up to date, because a lot of skills are going to go. And we need new skills that will drive this digital space. And take a look at it. He mentioned about cybersecurity. A lot of people do not know that there's what is called the economics of cyberspace, or the economics of cybersecurity. So a lot of people are going to benefit from that. But what we need to do is to carry out an awareness program in such a way that the kind of innovation that our young ones or young minds will be tilted towards will be that kind of innovation for growth, for businesses, for strategies, and not innovations for cyber fraud and the rest of them. So we need that kind of mindset to change. And then we need to state clearly what, let me borrow from Mr. Ajijola now, what he calls the cyber army. The cyber army are not the regular army. These are the young men and women who are so tech savvy, who are cyber savvy, who are digital savvy, and understand how the system works. Let me let you know that we are in a different era. There is a paradigm shift. And when you have a paradigm shift, the knowledge has to shift. Skills will have to shift. Environment will have to shift. Even our payment system is going to shift further. The way we farm is going to shift further. And the way we interact is going to shift further, because a lot of minds are going to open. So it is a new economy that we are opening up. It is a new idea, new ways of doing things that we are opening up. And the health system is going to change. So I think even the legislative system is going to change. So these are the huge impacts that are going to come. So what we need to take advantage and to rule this new space is new skills, new ideas, and new knowledge.
Well, before we lost contact a while ago, Dr. Bayero Agabi, you were speaking on facility. You have just talked about the paradigm shift, and also alluding to the fact that many other things we have to shift in all sectors of our national life, which is particularly true with respect to deployment of 5G. Now, talk about facility, because this is all about being ready, being prepared to technically key into 5G. You are a member of the technical working group for government. Are we prepared in terms of facility? If no, what are the efforts being made to ensure that the facilities or infrastructure required for us to key into this 5G initiative are there?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kelly. And I think we are ready. I think we have the facility, because the facilities that you actually need are human. Because if you go and buy equipment that you do not know how to use, the equipment will die, or working wherever it is. But if you have the people with the soft skills, whatever equipment or facility that you have, it will work. You have NASHCOMSAT that have footprint everywhere. It provides you the kind of broadband facilities and the speed that you require. And what is different from 5G, from 4G, is that the kind of math that you require, to deploy 5G is not the type of math that you require to deploy 4G. So that means that it may be more expensive at the beginning, but as you go along, the prices begins to come down, and then the other issue that was a major issue, which is the right of way, that one has been greatly resolved. So it means that you can reach your internet can reach, at the nook and crannies of Nigeria, depending on how the governors, agree. So for me, facilities are available. The only area that I see issues is that as we begin to imbibe or go into 5G very in-depthly, we are going to have issues of, when we talk about autonomous vehicles, which road are they going to fly on? When we talk about artificial intelligence, who are the people? Where are we going to apply, those kind of people? So we still need certain things that have to rejig in terms of policies and in terms of the practical solutions that will engender the kind of environment that we require. It is environment mostly because facilities and infrastructure you can buy. Environment, you have to engender it to ensure that it comes to play, and you need people who are knowledgeable enough to drive those systems. So for me, infrastructure, yes, we have it. Up to 70 or 75%, you can say we are infrastructurally ready. But the people, the skills, the policies, we need to also get them ready.
Dr. Agabi, you just mentioned something of great interest now, which has to do with the satellite. You mentioned NASHCOMSAT. But when Adejola was responding to one of our questions, he did mention that when NASHCOMSAT was designed, that there was no 5G component on that satellite. Invariably, we are going to rely more on foreign satellites. That's also part of the preparedness I'm talking about. And again, it leads to the expensive nature of 5G. Meanwhile, when 5G comes, as expected, it has to be in few cities of the country. It means that it is going to take a longer period of time for us to be able to establish these infrastructure or facilities in most cities in Nigeria for you to now begin to be effective and impact on a national life the way you are pointing at. So what do you make of this issue of reliance on foreign satellites to drive 5G?
I think, Mr. Kerry, and I think I'm getting you. In the past, we had what we call legacy technology. So when the new ones come, we do away with those old ones, and then we run with the new ones. The 5G is a new technology, and it's a new kind of calibration. And so you cannot do away with what exists. And I can tell you that in 2 years, you cannot, with 5G, cover at least 40% of Nigeria, because it is pretty expensive. For the countries that have deployed 5G, they still rely on the pre-5G era, like the 4G, the LTE, and all of that, to backhaul some of the things that they have to do. So you don't do away with those things that you have done. I think where we are now is a test mode. It's a test mode, because the cost of deploying 5G, it is not baby, money. It's not little money. So I think it's a good thing. We have started well. We should not deceive ourselves. That within 1 year or 2 years, 5G is going to be everywhere. That is why, there was, a test, before the final one. So between Lagos and Abuja, yes, that is going to be, how LTE was also deployed. It wasn't, up till now, LTE is not everywhere. So I think you're getting what I'm saying, because of the audio delay that we had. So those were the issues that I had. But for 5G, it's not something that is going to happen like a button.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Agabi. Thank you indeed. And gentlemen, it is said that we are concluding this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. We would like to appreciate you once more for being part of the program. Dr. Bayero Agabi, a member of the Government Technical Working Committee of Digital Identity Ecosystem. Thank you indeed. And here in the studio, we've had Olabode James. We also appreciate your contribution this morning.
Thank you very
and
much.
Again, Abdul Hakim Ajijola, Chair, African Union Cyber Security Expert Group.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sport update is next.